Religion does not deserve respect. I'll repeat that again. Religion does not deserve respect. Now, let me explain what I'm talking about. I've just come off a news forum concerning the kidnapping case in Nigeria that's been quite well documented now. The schoolgirls who've been kidnapped by the Islamist group Boko Haram in Nigeria. Malala Yousafzai has weighed in on it. She's a young Pakistani woman, still a teenager. She's come out and said these people are against Islam. She's talking about Boko Haram and nothing to do with Islam. Now, this is the same sort of line. First and foremost, I have a lot of respect for Malala. I think she's a very brave young woman. She's an inspiration, but I don't agree with her. And I see very, very similar rhetoric from a lot of Muslims. Whenever something like this happens, it's always the line, these people have nothing to do with Islam. And no doubt there's Christians who would say the Westboro Baptist Church has nothing to do with Christianity. Hopefully that will decline now Fred Phelps, the late Fred Phelps, has demised. But I want to talk a little bit about the implications of this. When you say that religion, any religion, it usually refers to the Abrahamic religions, but any religion, is above criticism, you cannot then claim to support free expression, because that is inconsistent. And I find it unfortunate, because most of the people who say it are not bad people. They're not extremists, they're not necessarily bad people. I just think they're wrong. And I find it very tiresome. To me, saying that religion is above criticism is a bit like saying it's forbidden to criticize capitalism or communism or any other ideology. Now, no doubt they will say, oh, well, religion is very different from political ideologies, but there's people who would die for political ideologies. There's people who hold that dearly, and yet the political ideologies are widely criticised. So the idea that religion should have some sort of special status, I utterly disregard. There is an argument to be made for the right for religious freedom, practice religious freedom. In other words, to practice religion without persecution. That's a different issue. That is not the same as criticism of religion. And I think what actually happens here is a lot of religious people, not everyone, but a lot of religious people take this very sensitive attitude whereby they don't divorce themselves from the religion. So if you criticize, for example, Islam, a lot of Muslims will perceive that as a criticism of them as people. So they'll take that attitude, you criticize Islam, you must hate Muslims. Now, no doubt there's people who do criticize Islam do also hate Muslims. I'm not disputing that. But a lot of people who criticize Islam do not hate Muslims. So it's an erroneous connection to try and... I think it's actually dangerous. It's dangerous in terms of freedom of expression, because that means anyone who dares open their mouth and say something about religion is then accused of being a horrible bigot who hates religious people. And to me, that's just nonsense. There are, I've argued before, there are certain atheists who probably do hate religious people. There may be sectarianism, whereby in some parts of the world you have religious strife. People do hate members of another religion and so on. But the idea in itself, in broad terms, that if you criticize a religion then you must hate its adherents, that's just lazy thinking. I can think of many, many, many things to be found within Islam and Christianity, particularly those two, but the other religions as well, that I would strongly criticize. To cite two examples, in the case of Islam, the barbaric stoning practice that's going to take place in Brunei. Within Christianity, the massive sexual abuse that took place in the Catholic Church. Now, you cannot tell me that those issues have nothing to do with religion. Clearly they do. Clearly they're connected. And it's almost like, it's almost McCarthyist against people who try to criticize religion, whereby, oh, you criticize religion, you must hate religious people. It's just utter nonsense. I know many religious people, and many of them are very decent, very amicable people. But I would even disagree with my own friends, my religious friends. I would be prepared to have a debate with them about it and say, look, I like you as a person, but I just don't agree. The idea that if you criticize religion, you're somehow a bigot, that's just... I would say some people who criticize religion are, but, well, I'm going round in circles here, but I'm trying to emphasize the point. So I get frustrated every time that this sort of thing happens. A lot of people come on and say, oh, this has nothing to do with Islam. I wish they'd be a bit more open-minded and acknowledge that actually it may not be what they would perceive as their version of Islam, and it may well be that Boko Haram is misinterpreting the Quran, although from my reading of the Quran it is full of violent surahs. But even if you take the view that they're misinterpreting it, and I think there is an argument to be made that Islamists do pick and choose what they want, but even if you take that view, you can't then say it's got no connection. I mean, I try to use this analogy. A corrupt policeman is still a policeman. It doesn't stop him being a policeman. So I guess you'd make the same point. A corrupt Muslim is still a Muslim in that sense. So I just wish moderate Muslims would be a bit more honest about this and accept that within Islam there are people who are connected with the religion. They may not be interpreting it the way that you would interpret it, but clearly they're interpreting it in a certain way. Now I would ask the question, if Islam is entirely innocent, why is it these people focus on Islam? You're saying they're just terrorists, they're just gangs, so why do they focus on Islam? Why wouldn't they just call themselves gangs? Why wouldn't they just identify themselves as terrorists? So why is it they're using Islam? Ask yourselves that question. And I haven't seen that explained yet. You know, I've seen statements like, oh, they're perverting the true meaning of Islam, they're not true Muslims, etc. But I haven't seen anyone explain why they're using Islam. That would be my question. And the same applies for Christian fundamentalists, such as the Westboro Baptist nuts. Now, of course, you can point out, oh, well, most people are not like that. Most Baptists aren't like the Westboro Baptist crowd. Most Muslims are not like Boko Haram. But it does not change the fact that there is a connection there. So what I want to see is more honesty with this. And just a change in the mentality that religious people need to stop being so sensitive and start to be a little bit more, see the bigger picture, and just accept that religion has its flaws. Now, I often see things like Islam is perfect, Christianity is perfect, etc. Okay, maybe you believe that, but don't pretend it doesn't have problems. Okay, maybe the problems are human problems. Maybe they are a result of people misinterpreting it, whatever, but don't say that it has no connection. That is simply disingenuous and dishonest, in my opinion.